Okay, we're off. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to do a roll call. Bill Harris,
Here.
Mike McGee,
I'm here.
Jeff Meinke, Tom Meyer,
Here.
Steve Ross,
Here.
Terry Lewis,
Here.
Chris Staub,
Here.
Harry Plout,
Here.
Mary Allen. Okay.
Here.
So right now, Mark Beatty, Bob Fulgara, George Finley are not here, and as well as Jeff Meinke. The clerk's report, approval of the special meeting minutes of January 12th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of January 12th as submitted.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is the discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The minutes are accepted. Treasurer's report, Bill Harris.
I sent it out. Hopefully you all got it.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, it went out.
Okay, so basically we have 26,849.69 is our balance. The only things that really went out was the printing for the stickers was $167.50, and we paid Harry for the Navaid buoy $150, and then the interest was $345.
Is the nav buoy, was that the pull of the nav buoy and storage? Is that what that was?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for the treasurer?
Where'd you say the balance is?
26,849.69.
Okay, thank you. Have we paid for the dinghy dock? We've been billed for that yet?
The town paid for it.
Okay.
That I've got to
Yeah,
add
that's not
that.
really-
I got to add
that's
that to
town
the
budget.
town budget part, but we also need to know the real figures because I've got to change that, what's allotted.
I took a quick look at that bill. It looked like it was 800 and change.
That was 800, yes. But what we have allotted, I don't think is correct. We have to jive with the town.
I thought we budgeted 800.
Yeah, that part is right. I just got to add it to here.
Oh,
But what we have the figures of 1,050 and then miscellaneous 100. I don't think that's the way the town has it.
All right, well, possibly we'll sit down with Nicole at some point in time in a month's time, when we start looking, and when the finance committee approves the budget, you and I will have to go talk to her about our upcoming budget.
Right.
To get the explanation of how she entered the budget. I submitted a budget, and she told me it wasn't approved until it was approved, and then we can discuss it with her after she gets it approved.
Okay, and then I could change these figures.
Yes. So let's put that off until she lets me know it's been approved.
Okay.
Then the Board of Finance isn't meeting till, I guess, now. Okay, moving on. I had one piece of correspondence that might come to bear tonight. We had an application put in from Daco on behalf of Point of Woods Association. I did mail out the Point of Woods application. It is a standard renewal of previous applications, multiple applications to do a beach sand relocation. I'll put that on the agenda after the other applicants if we have time, or it looks like we want to discuss it. But since it didn't make the agenda, we're going to have to vote to add it to the agenda at that time. So I just want to let you know that we'll have to vote to add it to the agenda, and then we can discuss it. But however, Rocco said it's not that important that it can't wait a month. Okay, let's start up. We have a guest online. Rima, why don't you introduce yourself and your job title, please?
My name is Rima from Office. I'm with Martinez Couch and Associates. I'm project manager for permitting. In this case, Amtrak, bridge over Connecticut River, Old Saybrook, Old Line.
Thank you. We've seen your name in writing many times on many of the permit documents. We've received responses to questions submitted by Steve Ross. And there was three basic areas of interest by the committee. One was the use of the construction trestle bridge over the Lieutenant River. One was the impact of putting a road in, an access and construction road in off of Route 156. And the other issue in the background that we noted, but we weren't the lead on, but it was a very important topic to the marine trades and the harbor masters, was the bridge vertical clearance
John,
way of a span. So
John, that came later. The third question we initially posed was regarding the dredging and the fence they put up for preventing siltation. Later, we discussed the vertical clearance, but we had deferred to the Marine Trades Organization, Connecticut Marine Trades, who were really spearheading the investigation into that. But we did receive updated prints from RIMA showing the revised vertical clearances.
okay, I believe. Well, I'll summarize. I've got a bunch of papers here that all of our questions have been answered, and I've forwarded those over time. It's a little difficult. It's voted over the space of like 4 or 5 months here, but I think I got to applaud the people on the project for addressing the issues, and I don't have any more questions. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, this is a co-op application. It requires a signature and a sign off, so we're going to have to vote to approve this license application for the Amtrak National Railroad Passenger Corporation, Amtrak.
I make a motion that we approve the project as submitted, which is 60% plans, and sign the COP indicating that we find it consistent with the harbor management plan, and refer it to the applicant as required.
We have a second.
Yeah, I'll give a second on that.
Tom Myers has seconded. Discussion. No discussion. We'll take a vote. Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Remember, I'm going to sign the co-op and send it out probably tomorrow. And who does that go to, by the way?
Can you send to me, please?
Send it to you?
Yes,
Not a problem.
I'm the keeper.
Yes. Thank you for attending. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Night.
I,
We have two other applicants tonight. Is anybody from DACO on the phone or on the video?
Keith Nielsen's on the phone.
You're there, Keith. Good. I didn't. Okay, you're either user number 4 or user number 5. Probably number 5. Okay. Let's get into the Drexler dock application 39-1 Mile Creek Road. Keith, could you explain to us why we're seeing this a second time and what are the differences and what are the changes that occurred that required you to go from a general permit to a more specific, lengthier permit? Could you address those issues for us, please?
Sure, I will. The Keith Nielsen, DACO Incorporated, on behalf of Debbie Drexler, the applicant. When we submitted this application, I was of the misunderstanding that we could not submit general permits if we only held easements of access across a piece of property. What the DEP informed me about is if there are any easements on a piece of property, a general permit may not be applied for. And so we had to take the withdraw the general permit application and turn it into a structures and dredging permit application. And when we did that, in order to get the floating dock into a position where it actually reached some depth of water, in this case, not much, but not quite a foot of water, we extended the dock out another 5 or 7 feet. And we were careful to abide by all of your harbor management criteria. We're not past the quarter width of the river. We are clear of the thalweg. We are in tidal waters. We're clear of any resources. And we are not obstructing navigation. And that's basically what happened. So we're getting more usable water and still abiding by the harbor management plan. So on that basis, we prepared revised drawings and sent them out to everybody. And the Corps of Engineers and the DEP are looking at them right now. So in this case, we need now a consultation form signed by the commission that this plan is in conformance with the harbor management plan. And that's what we are respectfully requesting.
Could you comment on the recent letter this afternoon that we got from your office regarding some concerns about neighbors?
Yeah, in the process of preparing this application, we sent out letters to each neighbor requesting a letter of no objection on this project. And to our surprise, both neighbors said that they would not be issuing a letter of no objection. They want to retain their right to object to this project if there are changes produced by the permit process, such as recommendations by the Corps or the DEP. At this point, we have sent copies of the plans to the neighbors. Both of them felt that the previous dock submittal was too high, the pier was too high, and they wanted it lower if possible. Under the under the structures and dredging permit process, we have some ability to negotiate that. And so we have redrawn the drawings so that the pier section of the dock facility will originate at grade level at an elevation of roughly 6 feet above mean low water, elevation 4.3, 4.2 NAVD. And so we have revised the plans and we sent them both to Mr. London, the south abutter, and Mr. and Mrs. Merrick's, the north abutter, and we're waiting to hear from them at this time. And so we've done everything we can to lower the profile of the dock, but since it's a floating dock, we're really more or less limited to a pier elevation that will allow the ramp to be declining or level, no higher than level, running out to the float, and that dictates an elevation of about 6 feet above mean low water. It is anticipated that this system will be removable. The ramp is a 30-foot aluminum ramp. The float is a 100-square-foot float, has a 30-square-foot landing float. Total length is about 16 feet. And it should be able to handle the 30-foot ramp with no problem, and it'll be stored at a marina downstream, maybe Black Hole Marina or something, but it'll be removed in the winter. The floating dock will be held in place by either jetted pipes or posts. We know that we cannot get a pile driver up there to do any of this work, so jetted pipes are probably the most logical, float restrained.
Are those 10-foot poles, Keith? Pipes?
They're going to be more than 10 foot. We're looking for 6 to 7 feet of embedment, and then standing up to an elevation of about 8 feet above mean low water, just to make sure that they won't float off in flooding conditions. So they'll be probably 15 footers.
Are we still having a regulation in town, and this is for John and everybody, because I'm not really familiar, but I thought we were supposed to be horizontal to shore with our floating docks?
Yes, that's correct.
So we're not on this because we're trying to stretch it to length to get to water, deep water. Is that what you were doing, Keith?
We're trying to get to water that where a boat could actually operate on almost all tides. And so we've got 0.8 of a foot at mean low water. I'm not sure what you mean about horizontal.
Usually don't you say the longest side is supposed to be horizontal or not?
This is Mike McGee. It's
You mean-
supposed to be parallel to the shore, the long axis of the dock. That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, we're in a bit of a bind with this one because the property is only 10 feet wide, and so in order to stay within the riparian, the customary riparian area for this property, the DEP generally makes us stay within the extended property line, and so we were trying to do that as a, it's a bit of an unusual circumstance, but that's what we were trying to do.
Because when I was trying to figure out how long this is, because really you have it as 44 plus or minus, it's actually, and I could be wrong, can you tell me what the exact length is with the plus and the minus added in?
Sure. The 44 is back to the mean high water. It's another 6 feet plus or minus to the high tide line, and the part of the pier that is the actual landing on shore is about another 6 or 8 feet. So it's on the order of about 58 feet, 55 to 60 feet, something like that.
Well, so no, I think it's like 60 some feet, you were saying.
Well,
Right?
It's 44 feet from the end of the float to the mean high water line.
Yeah.
There's about 6 feet to the high tide line,
Okay.
so that's 50. And there's about another 8 feet to the physical end of the deck of the pier on the land, flush with the ground. So it's on the order of 58 feet.
Okay, we're gonna call on Steve Ross. He's got his hand raised.
Yes, 2 points. One, we have the ability to approve the positioning of the dock where the longer side of the float is not perpendicular to the land, particularly in an instance like this where it just won't fit. Second thing I want to bring up is this landing float. I don't feel that that is consistent with our regulations and harbor management plan. It adds an additional 30 square feet of float, and we have a limit of 100 square feet. The use of these landing docks or pads, whatever you want to call them, I feel is a bad precedent because I think any other applicant could argue, well, this person has 130 square foot float. Differentiating between a landing float and a boat float, I think is semantics, and it should be limited to the 100 square feet.
Mike McGee here. I agree with Steve on most of that. If I can say something at this point. Keith, can you do a 10 by 10 float? I know you're on the line with that, or
Yep.
and have the ramp land on it.
Yeah, yes, it physically can be done. Part of the issue that we face on these small floats, the 100 square foot plus the 30 square foot, that's a general permit standard, and that's what I was trying to stick with on this. It wasn't an arbitrary decision. I understand about the 100 square foot float. The factor that we get into is that this is a 30 foot ramp that it's going to weigh about 800 pounds, 1,000 pounds, and if we have a landing float that is capable of supporting the 1,000 pounds, then we end up with a floating dock that floats level. If we have to put that 1,000 pounds on the 100 square foot float, we've got to land the float. We've got to land the ramp right in the middle of the float, so that it won't, be heeling or listing. It's got to land right in the middle. And
yeah, I understand that, Keith.
It just limits the amount of space that you then have.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you? I was wondering if you could do a trapezoid.
No,
Can you have the long leg parallel to shore and taper it as you go out to get
John?
your landing
Hold on,
ramp off center?
let Mike finish.
And that would give you the ability to have your ramp off center, and you get the buoyancy where you need it. Reaching deep water isn't a concern of the commission. Can that area be dredged? Is that a possibility?
The DEP will not let us dredge for a residential dock.
Okay, all right. Interesting, because I think you're doing it over on the Connecticut River.
Well, that's true, but that was before we got that permit originally 20 years ago for Dr. Staub and
Okay.
and the DE. And as long as we had a previous permit and it's maintenance dredging only, They have in many cases allowed us to renew a certificate of permission to do it again. I should have said the DEP will not allow us to do new dredging for a residential dock based on their policies for the last 10 years or so.
Okay, the next person that wants to speak is Steve Ross, but before he does, Chris, for the people that can see the video, Chris Staub has been posting pictures of the application and excerpts from our harbor management plan. They're very, very helpful. Thank you, Chris. I think your mastery of the technology is great. I appreciate it very much. Steve, you had a question.
Yeah, it's Keith. I find it difficult to believe that the full 1,800 to 1,000 pounds of that ramp is going to bear on the float. There's a portion of it that's over on the pier end. Plus, it's at an angle. It's not just the whole thing sitting right on the dock. So I think the situation with having too much weight on the float might be a little overstated.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been our experience that when we get these heavy ramps on a float, we have to be fairly close to centered on the float. And on these landing floats, we have, if we can get two of the standard 2x4 by 18-inch deep or even a foot deep floats, the 640-pound buoyancy floats, they have a total buoyancy of 1,200 pounds, and that 30 square foot of dock framing weighs about 150 to 200. And so those two floats would take the weight of the ramp and the framing, and it would leave 100 square feet usable for the for boating purposes and so on. So that's
a lot of these floating docks, 100 square foot floating docks that are out there, have the ramps closer to the center of the dock. The boats are tying up on the edges and the ends, and they're not. Having the ramp doesn't impede that. I worry about the precedent. I just don't care for the risk of making this a common practice. And it is against our harbor management plan, doesn't conform to our regulations.
I noticed that Chris has just posted, there's a statement in our plan that says there shall only be one pier, dock, wharf ramp, or floating dock per property.
We did pass a mechanism where you can apply for a waiver, but at this point, I don't feel that we can approve something that doesn't meet the regulations.
Well, if the commission agrees with that, we will redesign this to take out the 30 square foot landing float and just have a 100 square foot float.
Steve, were you referring to the variance procedure? You said waiver. Did you mean the variance procedure?
I meant the variance procedure.
Okay. Let me back up to something that Keith said in the intro. When you said you do a structures and dredge permit, the standards, you said the standards in those permits are 30 square feet and 100 square feet. Why? What are you referencing when you said those are the standards, Keith?
I was referring to the general permit, the general permit for a 440 dock. The DEP has 32 criteria in that general permit, and one of them says the last or the end float cannot be more than 100 square feet, and there may be a landing float of up to 30 square feet. And so that's the standard that I was referring to. And since our original application to the DEP was based on a general permit, and they had their only objection was the fact that there was an easement on the property. I figured that we would start off the structures and dredging permit application using the same basic configuration that we had for the general permit.
But the ramp was 24 feet, not 30 feet last time.
Right, because there's a limitation on how far you can go out in the general permit, 40 feet from the mean high water line. Under the structures and dredging permit, we're not restricted to that limitation.
Keith, I'm still not following. What does 440 mean? 4 foot wide, 40 feet long?
A maximum length of 40 feet from the mean high water line, or upon reaching a depth of 4 feet at mean low water.
Oh.
So if you reach either one of those, 40 feet from the mean high water line before you get to 4 feet of depth, or if you get to 4 feet of depth before you get 40 feet out, those are the two limiting criteria for how far out the floating dock or the dock can go.
Oh, okay. So the 4 means the depth of the water.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that. Notwithstanding that, I think Steve has made the point that this is not consistent with our harbor management rules as they stand right now. I was trying to understand from your description whether or not our harbor management rules aren't in alignment with the state permit rules, but I don't think they have to be. Is that correct?
There are instances in zoning where local standards differ from state standards. And the stricter is the one that prevails. For instance, in Old Lyme, the criteria for your well water test is more stringent than the state's criteria for well water. So if you're building in Old Lyme, you have to adhere to the Old Lyme regulations. We have the same situation here where, and I wasn't aware that the state had that landing float thing in there. I don't think I've ever seen it. I'd want to research it, but Keith knows his stuff and I'm sure it's there. But I don't see how we can approve it with the landing float unless we went into the appeal situation. And this is something we can review when we revise the harbor management plan this year. But for the time being, what we have is 100 square foot float.
Okay. Do I have any more discussion? Let me call for discussion. Anybody else wants to say anything else?
Just Keith Nielsen.
Yes.
I would just like to reiterate, if you feel that the only way that you can approve this is with a 100 square foot float, then we will revise the drawings to show a 100 square foot float.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application provided there's a 100 square foot float and no additional float.
And that it meets all Harbor Management Commission requirements for our current documents, because that's not the only thing that it doesn't meet today.
That's correct. Yeah, I
What-
agree.
Well, let's be very specific so Keith knows what you're talking about. What are you referring to?
The float is required to be horizontal to the shoreline, so in parallel. The way it's positioned now is not per code for our Management Commission file there.
Well, there was a discussion that the riparian rights are pretty narrow at that point of land. So you said there was only 10 feet of room side to side, Keith?
Yes, sir.
Are you still talking about the 100 square feet being rectangular or square?
The I would prefer that it be rectangular so that we have some safety factor on either side. But if it has to be parallel to shore, the only way this will work is a 10 by 10 float. And if that is your decision, then that's what we will show.
Can I ask you why it wouldn't work for 12.5 by 8? Why couldn't you do that, Keith?
The 12.5-foot dimension would stick out 1.25 foot beyond each extended property line. And
I see what you're saying.
I
Okay.
would prefer not to have that as a potential sticking point.
Yeah.
I think the orientation of the dock is pretty minor, and that the unique narrowness of the site justifies allowing the orientation to be the way it's shown on the plan. I think to do otherwise with such a narrow site is kind of unnecessary.
I have
So
one more.
would we have to go through the variance process to approve that?
I think it's minor
Yes.
enough. We do not. The variance
Oh,
process was intended for very peculiar circumstances. This is kind of pretty straightforward. But that's just my opinion. I think
I guess
I have one
public
question.
can go through a variance process on the orientation of a dock when you're talking about, a couple feet one way or the other on a 10-foot wide riparian strip is, I think we're more reasonable than that, I guess I'd say. We try to be reasonable because that's our responsibility as public officials, to keep in mind both the needs of the town and the benefit, the best interests of the town, but also serve the property owners in a fair and reasonable manner.
Yep, 100% agree. So, but I think if we're going outside of what our plan states, we need to document that variance and then approval to that variance, correct?
I don't think we need a variance. I think we can document it in the reason for approval at this point, at this meeting. Again,
There's some middle ground here. Terry, you had a question?
My question was just why he, just a quick question. It was just for Keith. Keith, what was up with the pedestrian access step that you were requiring to slide the whole thing up?
Okay, the DEP has a general standard that our docks must be elevated so that they are 5 feet clear from the bottom of the framing for the deck to the mean high water line, and from there out to the mean low water line, to allow public access along the shore. And if we cannot provide that, we have to provide a way for the public to get up and over the dock. And so we provided a ship's ladder on the south side and a stone step on the north side. The shoreline slopes off in a southeasterly direction, and our pier is east-west, and so we have different elevations for the ground, immediately north and immediately south of the pier. And so we provided up and over access on the pier in this case.
So why would you is there like an easement as far as public access, or is it just through the 2 houses that have the deed access?
It's the 2 houses that have the deed access that was the easement preclusion for this.
Okay, that was just my question. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we're back to the square that Steve has made a motion. And Steve, would you consider on your motion that we include, let's just restate the motion, that we'd approve the Drexler application with a 100-square-foot floating dock as the only floating dock. The orientation is because of riparian right restrictions, and we do not want to encroach on the neighbors. And we want that landing ramp to be safe, that we are going to incorporate in that motion a variance to the harbor management standard that the dock must be horizontal to the shore. And in this case, it is such a minor variation that we're going to allow a minor variance of the orientation because of the restrictions of the lot and the need to center that ramp on the that float.
Yeah, I think if you go back to our variance procedure,
Right.
the intent of it, we stated the intent of it to be for pretty, very unusual conditions.
Right.
This, I don't think is that unusual. We could call it a waiver instead of a variance. Because if you call it a variance, we have to go through the variance process, which means another month. If we just call it, we're waiving that minor requirement, I think it's justifiable.
I've never seen us waive a piece of,
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever waived a regulation, have we?
Well, I've never seen us have a 10-foot wide piece of property either.
Well, I don't see why we need to wait a month to give them a variance. If the variance is the variance to our thing is that we've discussed the particulars that a 12.5 by 8.5 is very close to a 10 by 10.
And then I would put in the motion that we find sufficient hardship to grant a variance on the orientation of the dock.
That's acceptable.
So to recap, we're approving the application with a 100-square-foot float and a variance related to the orientation so that it will fit comfortably within the narrow riparian corridor. That about cover it?
That does. Mary Ellen, you clear on that?
All right, let me start it over. Make a motion, we approve the application with the condition that the landing dock be removed so that there is only a single 100-square-foot floating dock, and that we're granting a variance as to the orientation of that floating dock due to the hardship of the site.
You're granting a variance as to the location of the floating
No, the orientation.
orientation.
In other words, the long side of it will not be parallel with the shore. It will be perpendicular to the shore.
Okay, well, I've got it on a recording, so perpendicular.
Okay, do I have a second for that motion?
Meyer seconds.
All right, the discussion is, Chris and Mike, can you live with that variance?
I'd like to understand what our variance procedure is. I've just searched through all of our harbor management plans and amendments, and I do not see any reference to any variance.
We had it approved by the town selectmen.
We only did I think we've only done two. Todd's kayak lift, and I think one that never got built at the end of Smith Neck. I don't know the owner's name. Smith Neck at the town, just south of the state launching area there. Those are the two that come to mind for me.
Yeah, that was Brault.
I think that's
Chris,
correct.
this
Yes.
is Tom Meyer. If you go to the website, the town website under the Harbor Management Commission, I think the variance procedure is listed as one of the links on the left.
Yes, sir, I got it. I'll share my screen so everyone can read it.
Need a microscope. I haven't here. Well, the second paragraph pretty much says it. A variance may be recommended when, in the judgment of the HMC, the variance would be preferable to strict adherence to the standards based on site-specific conditions and not generally prevalent within the site's harbor use zone. That's it right there.
Okay, thank you again, Chris. That's most helpful to have this technology. I got to figure out how you're doing this, but I tend to agree with you, Steve. I think this is the definition of why we put the variance procedure into the plan. I think it's the safest, prudent thing to do is to use the variance, so we're not second guess that we didn't recognize that we were making an exception. Okay, any more discussion on this application? I'm going to put it to a vote. Terry and Chris can both vote because of I forgot to tell you you're seated for the missing personnel.
Okay.
All right, let's take it to vote. Everybody in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Mary Ellen, the motion passes.
Mary, can you just put in the notes that it passes with all voting members with a yay? Because we need to document it that's over 2/3 majority for the variance procedure here. Thank you.
Were there any opposed?
No. He just was saying that we needed a 2/3 vote, not a majority on this one.
I thought it was unanimous.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
has to be
Steve, we're just trying to
documented.
document it, make sure we go through the right steps, not just cut corners.
Yeah, that's fine. No, better to include the specific language. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Again, we're having a very high quality meeting here. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on from Drexler to we're going to move on to Carl. General dock application 80-2 Mile Creek. Keith, you want to explain that application, please? Carl?
Sure. This is Ms. Carl had put out a floating dock that was originally a swimming dock without a ramp. She later added a ramp, which is contrary to the DEP swim dock general permit, and an enforcement action was brought by the DEP. We worked with Ms. Carl and the DEP enforcement officer to resolve that, and at the same time moved on to get a general permit dock for Ms. Carl. And so the application that you have before you tonight shows that that float. This is an unusual floating dock because for the first time we are making use of a kayak float, basically. The DEP general standard is for a 100 square foot float, a 30 square foot landing float. We're going to have the same issue that that we had just a moment ago with Ms. Drexler. So there is a 50 square foot rectangular float, and there is a 17, I believe it's 17 by 3 kayak float. It's odd shaped, and so it looks like a catamaran, and it's got sloping approaches that the kayak can pull right up onto. And so that's the extent of it. It's out again, less than 40 feet. It's clear of the Thalweg. It's clear of the quarter width of the river, and it is access to shore by a ramp. There is not really a fixed pier associated with this dock. It's there would be 2 auger set piles at the shore edge, and they would have a set of split caps that would have a bit of decking and a 1 or 2 step stair down to the edge of the tidal wetlands, but not over the tidal wetlands, to comply with the DEP's tidal wetland criteria in the general permit. And we just oriented it so that it would fit and be usable for Ms. Carl.
Keith,
Be happy to answer any questions.
Keith,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the print, and the description of the project mentions a landing ramp,
Yep.
which we've just gone over, but I don't see one in the print.
Well, if you look at sheet 4 of the drawings, you'll see that the hinged ramp comes ashore on what looks like 2 steps.
Yes.
Okay, that is the ramp landing. It would be like a pier, but
It's
if we
on the
went
shore-
over the
it's on
tidal
the shore,
wetland,
not in the water. Correct?
it's over the water. It's not coming ashore.
Does it float?
It does not. It's
Then
held
that's
up by
not
the
a
post.
float. Fine, then I have no problem. It's not a float. It's not adding to the square footage of the float.
Right,
Thank you.
certainly.
Come again, I don't understand what you just said, Keith. The landing float is on the ground?
It's not a float, John. It's just it's a fixed landing, call it pier. It's supported on the land. It's not in the water.
Isn't that the marsh
It is.
though? It's not the land. You have to walk all the way
It-
out to through the marsh to get to this, right?
It's grass, Terry. It's grass.
It is.
Yes. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the site.
So that whole section when you get to that landing is all grass right there?
It was when I was there. And that was last year.
It is grass. It's tidal wetlands vegetation, but it's grass, and Ms. Carl knows it, and the DEP knows it, and there's no law against mowing the vegetation, and so it's neat and trim, and it is her access way out to the dock.
Yeah, when I was out there with their enforcement officer, his only objection to mowing the grass was that they don't use a heavy piece of equipment and chew it up. That's all. But it was okay to do it.
Okay, well, I'm not sure how we're calculating square footage here again, but the landing float is 30.
No,
The
the
main
landing
float-
is not a float.
The landing float is not a float.
No, that's on the land side. The only thing in the water is that rectangular 50 square foot float. I think it's 50. And then those catamaran type kayak floats.
All right.
Well,
The question is, and we might have to address this with the update to our harbor management plan, is we've never really addressed, jet ski floats. The jet ski floats are not considered docks; they're just floats.
Well, for our regulations, they're part of the calculation, I think.
No, I thought jet ski floats were just
Jeez.
mobile things. They're not fixed.
Go back to this. So what's,
Okay, so we have a 50 square foot dock and a 50 square foot jet ski lift or
it's a kayak float, it says it on the plan.
oh, it's a kayak float.
Yeah.
It's a kayak. It's a kayak float.
So the total of the floats, the two floats, is 100 square feet.
Okay, all right. I thought it was a jet ski float. My mistake.
Yeah, it's kind of weird looking, but it's a kayak float.
Okay, because I was trying to think how a 3 foot wide thing would hold up a jet ski, but I guess that's not the case. Okay, very good.
And
I'm
then the
sorry.
ramp has its own float.
Yeah, this is the same situation as Drexler. We had tried to work out the general permit standards. This one is a general permit, and so we had the 30 square foot landing float, the 50 square foot rectangular float, and the 50 square foot easy dock. Easy dock kayak float. And I would say if the 30 square foot landing float is not approvable, then we would slide the floating dock system over to the west so that the ramp lands on the 50 square foot float, and we would take the 30 square foot float off.
There you go.
Okay, so it'd be the same process that we were just looking at with Drexler.
So I was assuming that in that picture that Chris just put up, so I had it wrong. If you look in the middle of the picture, that one white dot, that's approximately where you're talking about, right? See the
which drawing are you looking at?
Oh, I'm looking at the screen, Keith. Sorry, you're on the phone. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you couldn't see it.
It was in the application. It was the plan view. The plan view of the dock layout.
Right. I was thinking it was more to the left, Steve.
It's sheet 4. So
Yeah.
what Keith's talking about, in fact, I don't have my glasses on, so I didn't see it right away. I thought that the rectangular piece was one float. It's really two. So that landing float section on the west side will be removed, slide it to the west so that the ramp is on the 50 square foot easy float, to which is attached a 50 square foot easy kayak float. Right, Keith?
Yes, sir.
There you go. That conforms with our harbor management regulations.
So my one question, Keith, here is how far does that dock go out across, and what percentage of the river there is being blocked by the dock? It seems like, at least in your plans, you got almost 50%. And then when I look at Google Maps, it doesn't seem that piece of river there is very wide.
The river is I don't know exactly how wide the river is, but if you look at our drawing sheet 3, you will see that we have a dark gray shaded line through the upper part of the drawing, and about a third of the way down, we have a lighter gray shaded line. That lighter gray shaded line is the 25% of the waterway width at this site, and the darker line is the thalweg. And so what we were trying to show here is that we hugged the south edge of the river at this point so that we could fit into the 25% of the waterway width, and that we would be clear, demonstrably clear of the thalweg.
Yeah, I've been to the site and there's plenty of width there. This won't intrude on the channel, so to speak. Not at all.
Perfect. Yeah, that was my question. It looks like this picture explains it well. Thank you, Keith. It's about 25% of the river that will be blocked there, but you'll have full 50% in the middle plus the 25% on the other side. So no concern on my end.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good answer. Good. Okay, so on this application, we're saying the 30 square foot portion of the easy dock comes off. The 50 square foot portion moves to the west, and the kayak launch and the 250s are allowed. Okay?
Yep.
Agreed.
There's no sign off document on this. There's no COP.
I thought there was.
It's a
No,
general.
I don't.
Let me look at the beginning.
Excuse me, Keith, was there a sign off? There's no sign off on this one.
There's no sign off on this one. It's a general permit.
Right, that's what I meant. Okay, so, but you just have to present it, so we're gonna have to vote and say that we're okay with this layout as modified.
So John, just to be clear, the section, this base section here that I'm circling on the screen, that's the 30-foot section you're asking me to be removed?
No,
No,
the part out at the other end, Chris.
Where the other ends of the ramp lands.
Right here.
Take your red circle, find that says new 30 square foot easy ramp,
Keep going.
landing float.
Keep going.
Keep going. There it is.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
The way easy docks work is those little joiner pieces. Those are rubber dog bones, and they hold different poly sections together.
Okay.
So they're completely configurable. They're like made by the people that make play school outdoor furniture for kids.
Makes sense. I see it now. So I thought this up here said 50 square feet was for all of this, but it's really just this section here is 50, and then over here is another 30.
There you go. That's it.
That same
Yeah,
mistake.
I'm on board. Okay, thank you. Sorry for my artistic talent there.
Yeah, well, Steve and I went back and forth on the emails about that, and we weren't talking the same language because you unless you know what easy docks look like, you don't know that's a different dock.
Yeah, that was my mistake too. I'll make a motion that we approve the application with the condition that the 30 square foot easy ramp landing float is removed.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that. Mike McGee.
Okay, Mike McGee seconds. More discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Okay, it's passed. Motion carries.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
So Steve Ross moved to approve the application with the 30 square foot of easy ramp to come off.
It's easy, easy ramp landing float
Landing float. Okay.
removed.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're very We're doing well for being on virtual. I tell you, it's a godsend having these pictures pop up here. Anybody who's not here on the video can't see these wonderful graphics that Chris is supplying us with. Okay, Keith, I do have your last application for Point of Woods. Let me ask the question: is that any under due to the lateness of the hour? Is that something you want immediately, or is there no rush on that?
Well, if we would appreciate your support of the project, if you can give us, we're trying to get the DEP to issue the permit so that we can do the grading here in about a month. And so any support that you can offer would be greatly appreciated.
Well, due to the fact that beach season and people have been locked up with COVID, is that they probably want to go to that darn beach. Okay, so let's take a vote to amend the agenda to include the Point of Woods application to relocate beach sand. So can I have a motion to add it to the agenda?
So moved.
Second? John McDonald, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so the discussion is, what are they going to do, Keith, with the beach sand?
Right now, as you're probably aware, Point of Woods has had a permit for the last 11 years. It expired last spring, and the permit was in the fall to move the fine-grained beach sand up to the high point of the beach and berm it up there so that it becomes a bit of a storm barrier, and it also takes it out of the active erosion zone of the beach. Then in the spring, they put the sand back down on the beach, spread it uniformly across the beach so that when the residents get back to Point of Woods, they can enjoy the beach. It's a method of preserving the beach sand so that it does not erode away during winter storms. And the beach sand was collected last year while the permit was still valid. The permit expired, and so now to put the sand back down on the beach, we have applied for the new permit, and this is basically a reinstatement of a permit that's already been in existence for 10 years, and so we're not anticipating any difficulties on it, and just waiting for it to be processed.
Any questions for Keith?
Nope.
Can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the application.
Seconded.
Second.
Any more discussion? Okay, hearing none. Everybody in favor of the beach sand application, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that's passed, Keith. I mean, the motion is passed.
Thank you all. I appreciate your time tonight, and we'll see you again in the future.
Good
Okay,
night,
thank
Keith.
you.
Good night, Keith.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you,
Okay,
Keith.
that was a lot of applications. Harbor Master Report of Activity, Harry.
Are you sleeping?
Harry Plout. Is Harry Plout with us? Let's move on to the morning report from Tom Meyer. Thank you, Tom.
John, I did send out a paper report this afternoon. I don't know if everyone got it. I'll go over it real quickly just to reiterate. So the mooring process is kicked into high gear. At the beginning of the month of February, we sent out 69 pre-populated forms to our last year's mooring holders. And that was a redesigned form to reflect some of the things we've learned over the past few years and to clearly identify these forms as 2021. We obtained a new stack of 2021 decals. And I believe Bill Harris mentioned that he had gotten the invoice on that. So thank you, Bill, for taking care of that. We have placed mooring packets, paper packets in the town hall, and spoken with the folks in the town clerk's office, and they have gotten rid of the old forms and substituted the new forms. We put up postings in the Line online newspaper, the Old Line Facebook page, and in addition to our Harbor Commission website page, also the front page of the town website, so folks know where to go to get forms and information. Just wanted to mention one thing. The Lines folks, while they were happy to post a quick announcement, I did have several conversations with the woman that runs that entity, and she indicated that we would need to purchase advertising, as it were, in the future if we wanted to keep a running notice in that paper, and it was to the tune of somewhere between $750 and $1,500. I thanked her for her information, and I said I would bring it to the attention of the commission, but quite frankly, I don't expect that we're going to pay $750 to advertise our mooring. So anyway, I will respond back to her that we're not going to pursue that. But at this point, the numbers are I've to date issued 28 permits. All of those have been private. 25 of those have been non-HMC members. So, Bill, you should have received 25 checks in the snail mail from me. Hope you can confirm that you received that.
Yeah, I got them today.
Okay, great. To date, no commercial mooring requests, so we'll continue to follow up on that. As I mentioned, 3 folks from the HMC have gotten their permits, and we have about 4 others that are currently in process, either waiting for information or, in a couple of cases, new applicants. So we're waiting for inspection forms from them. In terms of follow-up, going to continue, obviously, to watch the mailbox for new mooring requests and process those as they come in. I am working on a separate commercial form and documentation that I'll be working with Harry to finalize. So we'll get that sorted out before the next meeting. And at this point in time, we're just going to, continue to process as the moorings come in. That's the report.
Thank you. Questions for Tom?
Tom, I don't know if we ever talked about this before, but I see that a lot of local towns are using an online system now. Have we thought about that? I know Lyme just went that direction. I know Essex and Saybrook also use it. I know we don't do a ton, but
I've been pushing for that. I've been thinking about it for 2 years. I pushed for it last year. I did not get a lot of interest. One of the things I wanted to do is, and I'm in the process of, is putting together a presentation. I'm very familiar with what you're talking about. Put together a presentation. At this point, I've got some information, and Harry just provided me with a number of GPS coordinates. I'm working up some demo stuff. I think my personal thought is that there's a good, a good rationale for it. But given the way that we're structured and the timelines that we use, I think if it comes to fruition, it'll be next year. So I want to work with John and Steve and all the rest of the members of the committee I want to present, a well thought out rationale. So, I may corral you into that process if you're willing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's 2021. Let's get on the internet here, huh?
I'm interested too.
I
love
agree.
that. I agree.
I agree.
Okay, well, anybody who wants to see online mooring, as Chris has said, is used in Essex and Old Saybrook. So if you go on their town websites and make believe you're applying for a mooring, you can go and look at that. You don't really need to show a demo, is what I'm trying to say, Tom. You just go on somebody else's website and go play with it.
No, but John, if you recall, the initial pushback on this, and I don't go into all the details, but the initial pushback was the cost. And what I would like to do is demonstrate exactly what the cost would be and what the value added would be, and make a return on investment, proposal based on a return on investment.
Okay.
So, it's functionally, I think it's a no-brainer. But the reality is they charge $6 a head for moorings, and either we will have to accept $6 less in our coffers per mooring, or we raise the price of the moorings. Either one of those, I think, is worth discussion, but we just haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. Well, let's put this off to another month. Let me know when you want to have it on the agenda, and we'll schedule it onto an agenda.
I will do that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. I'm glad to see you're aware and looking into it. I looked at it quickly today, and it looked like an awesome little system. And
Oh, yeah.
for $6, it's frees up a lot of time, and we get a lot of data out of it for future.
I'm all over it. Chris, let's have a conversation offline. I'll share
year?
with you what I've done.
Okay. Has Harry Plot rejoined us? Okay. Let's move on then. Pilgrim Landing. Any condition report from Michael McGee?
No, John, nothing. It's winter time down there. The racks are in good shape. We'll wait for the spring cleanup and be good to go.
Okay, you had another thing here about the launch and kayak storage committee, about the online events page.
Yeah, you got me down for that. Okay. Yeah, something I ran across. Old Lyme is participating in some sort of a sustainability program. It's statewide. I believe it's like a grassroots thing, and they get funding. And from someone else, I don't know why my phone is ringing here, but anyway, and Old Lyme is participating. They had a pedalability study and walkability study about the roads in the town. I thought, why not paddleability, rowability, boating ability, whatever. I thought maybe we could contact that group and see if they're interested in what we've done so far with dinghy racks and kayak racks and things like that, and see where it goes. Hello?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if I was cut off. So that's about it. If you'd like, I'll contact some of the members that are here in town and see what they're doing with it, if they're interested in what we're doing, and let them run with it.
Okay, let's why don't you follow up and see where they're heading with that activity? I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some funding available, matching funds, I believe, that come from like larger corporations or something like that would match any money that we put in to a rack somewhere, a launch area somewhere. I don't know. It all depends on where it goes. The town of Old Lyme received I think a bronze level, which is the highest given out so far in the state of Connecticut. The more programs you come up with of sustainability, it's the new environmental studies type thing. And then you can, if you come up with some money, they'll match it. So with an approved program, I'll let you know where it goes.
Okay. Well, let us know how it goes, and reach out if you need help with that.
Good. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. George is not with us, but is there anything going on with the dinghy dock repairs, Steve, that you know of?
Sorry, John, I didn't hear you.
I don't know if anybody's got a dinghy dock report. I know that you've been away, so I don't expect you to know.
No, I haven't seen it since early December when it was on.
Yeah, let's push that off. Let's go next month. We'll see. I'll take a trip down there and take a look at the docs.
Hold on. Sorry, I got a phone call and I think
Okay.
it's gone.
Let's just move on. I'll get a hold of George and ask him to report on that.
Good.
Okay. Okay, we're into new business. Code of Ethics contracts for services greater than $100, McDonald. As I was reviewing the documents, getting ready for the new year here, the Code of Ethics for the town of Oline and the harbor management rules, the chairman is authorized to up to $100 of discretionary approval. I think that amount of money in today's terms doesn't buy you much. So I thought instead of revising any money or value, because I don't think that's the appropriate thing to do, that we needed to more equitably put the business of the Harbor Management Commission out to bid amongst the local vendors so that everybody's on an equal playing field. So I've sponsored a document that you got, and I apologize for the last revision, but I just sent you out a fresh revision. The wrong copy was sent out a week ago. I had it ready, but so if you'd like to discuss and review and give me some comments on this request for bids, there's not a time crunch on it. We have time to discuss it. There's time for revisions. There's time to get it right. I will say one thing about this. I didn't design this myself in a vacuum. This is very similar to the town of Essex, and it's very similar to things that are done in Old Saybrook. So this is not breaking fresh dirt, so to speak. This is a practice of some local communities. So let me get your reaction to it first of all. Go ahead.
Well, John, I think it's overdue. I know you and I talked about it last year and talked about going out to bid on things like the town moorings and the nav aid Black Hole River, partly because we should be doing so as a municipal commission. But I'm glad to see that you put it together in a nice, formal, and easy to read document that we can use to distribute to potential bidders. So I think it's high time we did it.
Other comments? I wanted to let you know, it's interesting. Because well, for one reason or another, I had a conversation with Harry about this document, not as a preview of this meeting, but just to get some input. And Harry was actually very instrumental in me going from revision 0 to revision 1. He pointed out a lot of from his point of view, there was some confusing statements. And from somebody that was a potential bidder, I thought that was extremely good feedback to get the point of view of somebody trying to bid the document. He pointed out some ways to improve the document, and I thought it was very helpful and appreciated. I wanted to thank him on the line here tonight, but he's not there. But Harry pointed out that
I am here.
oh,
Hey.
okay. There you go.
I've been here all night. You just I don't know whether you've heard me or not.
No, we
I-
called
I-
on you, Harry, about 2 or 3 times for a harbor master report, and then we moved on because we didn't hear you.
Yeah, I know, and I kept talking, and you moved right ahead. But can I just say something about, you made the comment that you took some of this off of Essex and Old Saybrook because they put things out to bid. I just want you to know that they only put certain things out to bid. They automatically have some of their local vendors automatically do work. And I know this because I've tried to get bids for certain things, and they say, "Oh no, somebody does it." So to some degree, they don't put everything out to bid. I just want to let you know that. Okay.
You're just saying that they pick and choose what they put out to bid?
Yes. I'll give you an example. The installation of the North Cove moorings in Old Saybrook is automatically done by the harbor master. Because he doesn't have the capability of removing them, the removal process is put out to bid in the fall. Okay? And usually if they put things out to bid, it's not based on 1 year. They'll give somebody a 2 or 3 year contract at a certain price. So,
Okay.
and I know in Essex, there's one person that does certain work, and it's not always put out to bid. So I just wanted to let you know that it's always been up to their discretion.
Well, the same person in Essex might do a lot of the moorings, but there definitely is an invitation to bid in Essex. Whether or not they follow it or not, that's not for me to follow up. But I got some of this verbiage from them in Essex. What's online? Okay. Any other comments? Well, we certainly are not going to put all our work out to bid, Harry. You've made a point. When we can get Mike McGee to build our kayak racks with volunteers, we're not going to put it out to bid.
Who wants to compete with that?
I know it'll.
We can't compete with free.
They have in Essex. They have a lot of town officials or town crew that does certain things that they can do, and the same with Old Saybrook. They do that too. Not everything does go to bid.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you have to ask yourself, is there enough people in competition? You don't want to necessarily preclude somebody. Harry's got a point. If he wanted to pick the moorings out of South Cove or North Cove and Old Saybrook, and he's got a business to do it, I mean, it's like getting walked out.
One of the key drivers is what's the amount of the work, the approximate amount of the work we want to put out to bid. I mean, we're not going to put something that's $50 out there. So that's something we could probably think about and discuss, where the thresholds are. Thresholds and type of work.
There's definitely along those lines, Steve. One of the things I was thinking about is that we don't necessarily put out to bid things that we don't have a lot of control over, like abandoned moorings and things like that. That was the next agenda item. I was going to ask Harry for his updated 2021 rates on file, because when you don't have time to bid, you have to make some decisions based upon regular rates on file that that are normal and reasonable and customary. And if those reasonable and customary rates are on file, that is a good solid basis that you're not in violation of the code of ethics by assigning a party to do the work that's reasonable and customary. So the example I'm using is an abandoned mooring. if we direct Harry to pull an abandoned mooring, the abandoned mooring process is that Harry is the harbor master. He identifies the mooring as his private company. He pulls the mooring, but then again, we get a fee or a fine or a penalty for the mooring holder, or we get the mooring, or they have to pay the fees to get it out of Hawk. So in that scenario, I feel very comfortable that the committee can authorize that kind of rates on file to take precedent in an abandoned mooring situation, and that we don't have to go up to bid.
Yes.
If that's reasonable to you all. I mean, that's just the way I was looking at
Very
it.
reasonable.
Yeah, well said, John, well said.
Yeah, you just don't have time to go out to bids when you have, things happening.
And as you say, you have a rate on file.
Okay, so Harry, we do need your rates on file for this year. I know that last year you said that you had an increase in costs, and I want to document that in the notes, because that is a fundamental piece of data that the committee needs, not just for decision making. So we're acting based upon data, not based upon word of mouth.
All right. Are you ready?
Go ahead.
All right. To pull an abandoned mooring, it's $125, and there is no storage charge to the commission.
Okay.
To install the Black Hall River channel marker, that's $150 to install it. And also there is no storage charge. To remove each of the two 800-pound moorings that are the transient moorings, it's $150 for each mooring to install it, and there's no storage charge.
You said remove, or do you say install? Is it the same as remove and install?
Well, it would be, except you're going to put this out for bid in the fall, so why should I give you a price to remove?
I'm not asking you that, Harry. I just said, I thought you said to remove it was 150, but then you said install. So you're going to wait till the install for next year.
No. This year, to install all these three moorings, the two moorings and the channel markers, it's 150 each. But I can't give you a price to remove it because I have to bid on it.
Harry, I thought you just said it was 125 for Black Hole. That's a lighter mooring.
No, what I said was for abandoned moorings, it was 125. Okay.
Why is the price the same for the channel marker as it is for the 800-pounders?
Because I'm trying to be a decent human being to the commission. That's why.
No, that's...
You're right. I should get a lot more money to do the 800s, but I'm trying to, be a good hold line person. That's all.
We appreciate that, Harry.
John,
Yeah, I
make
mean-
a suggestion. That
Okay.
Harry, just rather than doing this at a meeting, send you the rates.
Do
Well,
what?
that's what rates on file means. You send me a letter with what you're going to cost, but just put in a letter what you just said, Harry, and send it along to the post office box.
Okay. I mean, you asked it for over the phone. That's why I was giving it to you.
Yeah, nobody's disputing that. I'm just saying, let's do it in writing.
All right, but I'm not going to give you a price to remove this stuff because I have to bid on it for September.
That's true.
If we decide to put it out to bid, that decision hasn't been made.
I thought that was something that was definitely going to happen.
We haven't instituted this this bidding process yet. We have to We still have to approve it. And then, as John said, decide what we want to put out to bid and what we don't need to put out to bid. So no, nothing's been decided, Harry.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood John. I thought this was something that was definitely going to happen because of the code of ethics.
Well, we're moving in that direction, Harry. You certainly are moving in that direction. What we're doing tonight is I introduce the document, and the whole committee is going to review it. I want to just leave it there. I don't want to prove anything tonight. I'm not pushing for that. I want to bring it up on the next agenda for comments, revisions, and of course the all important question is that do we want to do it or don't we want to do it? We want to stay the way we were, or do we want to move forward with this? But I think all I wanted to establish tonight is to get the document in your hands, let you sit and think on it for about a month, and get some more comments, and maybe I'll float it by some of the people that we normally use to see if it makes sense to them. But it's not a done deal.
Okay.
Mike
We're
McGee
moving
here.
that direction. I from a code of ethics, I don't see, I don't see many other options, to tell you the truth, to do it fairly. I feel that we're in the town is looking at the code of ethics. That new chairman they put in charge of the ethics committee is probably going to have something to say about people that don't put their work out for bids. And I think the Harbor Management Committee would be a lot more on the right side of the ethics question if we bid our work out.
I
So-
think it's an excellent idea that you put it out to bid. However, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot when you request that you can bid on 1, 2, or 3 items.
Harry, we haven't said that yet. Because that's what the bid, when you put something out to bid, you define
Well, it is.
what
It's
the bid
written
is
on.
for.
Bidders
Because
put just 1 or all 3.
clearly, if we put this out to bid, the two 800-pounders that are sitting next to each other are going to be in one bid.
No, I understand that. It's broken down clearly here. I see that. But what you're saying is the bidder can bid on 1 item or 2 items or 3 items.
None of it's been decided, Harry.
Well,
It's a draft.
Harry's just saying what's in the document, Steve.
Can we go to this document so we can discuss that part of it?
Can
Sure.
we just,
That's what it's here for. Let's go ahead and say what you think, Terry.
No, I would like, can you put the document up so we can kind of go over it? It's like we're having an argument over something we don't even know what we're.
I would recommend we put this off to the next meeting. It's 8:41. This is not time sensitive.
It's
Well,
up to you,
it's-
Terry.
I see it. So this is going to be happening in the fall, because the reason why this is coming up in front of us is we're trying to come up with what the scope of work is going to be, which we don't have to decide tonight, how we're going to present it, and that this is going to be for something in the fall that we're going to discuss in the next few meetings. I don't know. I mean, we got all this, and I assumed we were going to be discussing this tonight. So what are we doing?
Okay, well, this is an introduction. Basically, this is the format of an invitation to bid, request to bid, and it sets out the relationship between our committee and a potential vendor. And what we have here is 3 scopes of work: item 1, item 2, item 3. They're all separate. They could be bid separately. You can bid on 1 item, you can bid on 2 items, you can bid on all 3. And the it's a seasonal bid, meaning if you bid in the fall to do something for us, we want you to store our materials, and then we want you to reinstall in the spring. So it's a two-phase bid. It's uninstall and reinstall.
Okay.
Well, there could be special projects that we put out to bid too. One-time things.
Yep.
This is recurring. So I think there's more to this and that we ought to table this until the next meeting.
I hear you, Steve. But
Yeah.
if there's questions tonight, we want to answer. Go ahead, Terry.
Well, my question was exactly, just what you just said. This is all I needed to know. This is something that we're going to look into. We might want to tweak. We're introducing it tonight. It's not completely set in stone. If we have anything that we'd like to bring to the table for the next meeting of any questions, we'll review it and go from there.
You certainly don't have to wait till the next meeting. This is the kind of a document that is just work in progress. You can email me with questions. You can email me with your thoughts.
Okay.
Like I said, I already had one discussion with Harry about this. He pointed out some good things about it, good things to change, which I did.
And my assumption was the same thing of Harry's, that it was a done deal, that this was going on. So
no, well, I mean, it's in order to make a September deadline, we're going to need to get this out of the committee by July.
Okay.
We can't wait till the August break. We have to have it. Either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it by July.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I'm at with the whole thing.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at this. Mary Ellen, for the notes, it was introduced. It's open for comments and discussion. And anyone who wants to make some comments can send them to me and I will go over, or questions to me.
Okay, great. So we have 3 months so we can plug away at this.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, just a little follow-up on Tanamahaig. Anybody been down to the site? I've been down to the site. Have you been down? Anybody been down?
Yesterday and last week, and nothing's been done.
Right. Steve? Steve, you're on mute.
I read in the Board of Selectmen minutes that they approved the recommendations.
Didn't they approve them, but they said they were going to send them to the town council, the town attorney?
That I don't recall. That's possible. I guess they usually do stuff like that.
I think that's one of the, I think that was the coattail on that approval. They said they accepted it, but they're going to send it to the town attorney.
Waste of money.
There you go. Well, we need some action from the Board of Selectmen by bird watching season.
September.
We did our job, so I think it's in their ball court. Okay, last thing on the agenda here is the harbor management plan. Excuse me. Oh, we skipped it. Item 4. I didn't think you were on the phone, Harry. We skipped over item 4, number C. OLM Harbor Master Work Direction and Guidance Document Review and Comment. Again, I have reviewed this document with Harry before the meeting. I'm putting it out there for comments. I think that the time sensitivity in this is we got about 1 month to get it right. Again, I don't feel that as a committee, we can take great clarity out of the harbor management plan for Harry's specific work direction. So I think this document is, because after reading the files and reading some letters from the selectmen to Harry, that we needed to set up a more formal work guidance document for Harry, and I want to get his input tonight, and I want to get the committee's input tonight. And we will have to address this at the next meeting. I'll put it on the next agenda for a vote. But we'll have 1 month here for comments and edits.
What are we voting? I'm sorry. What it
We're
was?
not voting on anything. We're looking at the Harbor Master work direction and guidance document.
Okay. Yep. I see it.
And I want to get the committee's input.
Mm-hmm.
The rationale was that we needed to have a work direction document because there wasn't not enough direction from the harbor management plan. And I do not think that it was clear enough to rely on memos for work direction.
Mm-hmm.
This is more like a job description. It kind of outlines the year, and it is the purpose of the document is to clarify what OLIME expects of the harbor master. Again, I talked to John Ray from Westbrook. I've talked to the Essex Harbor Management Chairman, and I've talked to Old Saybrook Harbor Management Chairman. I've got their names. I've got their notes, and we had hours of discussion over how they do work direction. What I came up with is there's a general consensus that it's there and it's defined. And it's funny that every single one of these harbors, Essex, Old Saybrook, and Westbrook, has different needs of their harbor masters. And I think Old Lyme has different needs for the harbor master. So there's a general piece, and then there's the underlying general piece, but there's obviously very specific work direction for harbor masters. And just to clear things up, I put together this document to help. It's certainly not there to confuse. It's there to clarify.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my one ask would be for Harry is, are we missing anything that you do on a yearly basis that is part of your harbor master activities?
Good question.
I don't think we have enough time.
That's kind of exactly my point, Harry. I think this guidance document is just very high level. Harry does so much more than just what's on this list here. Another piece of this is the deputy harbor master. We need to define that role and responsibility and what that gentleman's doing to support Harry and what his roles and responsibilities are. If we're going to create this work direction for Harry, we also need one for the deputy. But I think there's a good step in the right direction to kind of start outlining this, what's covered in Harry's scope of work, and then what's covered by Harry's his business, because he's probably doing things that are that he's not getting paid for, and he should be.
John, I have a question for you. On line item number 3, it says make timely reports within 48 hours of untoward situations. Can you explain the meaning of untoward?
Do you need a synonym or a synonym for untoward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unusual?
I guess so. Abnormal?
Okay. All right. So can we substitute?
I guess you don't like that
abnormal?
word. I'll find a synonym for that word.
All right.
Any other suggestions besides Chris's that we need a deputy harbor master, that we need to look at the scope? I don't know, Chris, how I'm okay adding more detail, believe it or not. I'm okay with that. I just don't know what
When we,
the litany would
And
be.
on line
I
item
don't have
number
an
8,
idea.
when we appoint,
John, on line item number 8, shouldn't it say abandoned D after abandoned and abandoned docks?
You want the abandoned to be past tense, abandoned. Okay,
Well,
no
isn't
problem.
that our
No problem.
past?
It's
when we, as far as that deputy harbor master description goes, we outlined that generally when we decided to establish the position. And by the way, I was in touch with the state again 2 weeks ago and find that once again, someone else is handling boards and commissions. So what a fiasco. But anyway, when we established that position, we outlined the general responsibilities. So I don't know how specific, we want to make it.
okay. Well, any more comments on the work direction? Okay, so basically, Harry's on the committee ex officio. We have to maintain the code of conduct, a code of ethics, because we are dealing with a harbor master and a private a business, Harry Plout Environmental. We talked about making reports. Number 4 is a big one from the mooring committee with Tom Meyer helping and doing a masterful job. We're getting to a very sophisticated outlook about online moorings. So that's an important part of the duties. Always been part of his duties to do the mooring plan, which is number 5, the placement of moorings, the mooring circles. We talk about number 6, which is our annual audit, that we need compliance with everybody getting permits, the stickers on the ball, see what's in the water. We talk in number 7 about the management of the ordinances and administer the moorings, the dock usage. There were cases where maybe somebody abuses the dinghy dock. There were some cases where some people are abusing the transient moorings. So we can't lose sight of the fact that we've got assets out there that are not being always used properly. 8 is taking cognizance over emergency situations of abandoned vessels and docks. 9 is reimbursement, advance notice, related expenses. And number 10 was very important to the selectmen, the Board of Selectmen in the past, is that none of the jurisdictions that I talk to have police powers. And I'm not appalled, but I'm just very surprised that 20, 30 years ago, we had much more, quote unquote, enforcements on the river and in the sound. And now, pretty much a lot of the towns, because of liability and budgets, don't do that, and we don't. So we're right in the line with Westbrook, Old Saybrook, Essex, that I can assure you their chairman of their harbor management committees are doing exactly what it says in number 10. They're not, and if they do have the benefit of an auxiliary person, they're certainly not writing tickets, because I got that from the horse's mouth many times. So that number 10 was crafted very, very carefully with input from what we do here in town and what the other towns do.
We do nothing here.
Pardon?
Do nothing here.
Well, Harry, I mean, I heard that they're not enforcing wake and things like that. And there's no way they're enforcing DUIs. They're not enforcing speed. And so, there's pretty much.
But that's not true. I see him pulling people over all summer long. Old
No,
Saybrook.
that's not true. That is not, the towns are not doing that. You might be talking about DEP or somebody else, but the towns.
No, it says Saybrook on the side of their blue boat.
Well, they're not issuing
That's
any.
police.
They do not go to court, and they do not issue violations. That was according to their chairman.
I believe that Saybrook's boat is a police boat.
It is.
Well,
And
we're talking about commissions here, and yes, the police are the police. But
right.
I should have been more specific.
None of the commissions enforce, and they shouldn't be.
Still,
We're not law
Town of West-
enforcement officers, nor are the
Master
harbor
runs-
masters law enforcement officers.
In the town of Westbrook, the deputy harbor master is the Marine Patrol, and he issues enforcement.
Harry, when you go back to Westbrook and ask that fellow if he's writing tickets or warnings, let me know.
He's doing both.
Well, not according to his chairman, he's not.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Maybe the chairman doesn't
The
know.
other thing, I just wanted to bring to your attention that we as a commission need to distinguish between residential and commercial moorings now. Okay? Remember you and I talked about that?
That's not on the
It's
agenda.
on Tom Meyer's report. It's on the bottom.
Bottom of what?
Mooring report.
The mooring report.
No, about the structure of the moorings.
Oh, Jesus. Not that again, Harry.
Yes, that again, Steve.
An old line marina to buy great big floats to bounce against the bows of the sailboats at a cost
that's-
about $100 each.
Steve, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if we're going to allow them to do that, then we should say that that's a commercial mooring and not a residential mooring. That's all. And I want it to be that way because there are residential people that think they can do what Old Line Marina's doing.
Yeah, so Harry, can you give us a little explanation of what you and Steve are discussing there so everyone's on the same page?
Okay. Old Line Marina puts out approximately 45 moorings in their field a year. Those moorings consist of like lobster buoys that represent their mooring ball. They are not white with blue stripes. They're just lobster floats, which is the way that he wants to do that. Well, I'm starting to see, especially in the back river, residential people starting to do the same thing, and that's not allowed.
Yeah, so what does our harbor management plan clarify what the mooring ball needs to look like, or size, shape, et cetera, et cetera?
It does.
Well, the state statute says a mooring ball is a white ball with a blue reflective stripe on it, having your last name and the weight of the anchor on it. Those moorings put out by Old Line Marina don't comply with any of that. So what I'm saying is, let that be a commercial mooring permit, and to distinguish the difference between a residential mooring permit. That's all.
Yeah, but I guess, Harry, I'd take it one step further. If the moorings are not compliant to our Harbor Management Commission nor the state's requirements, why would we allow Old Line Marina to put out non-compliant mooring balls?
Because the Harbor Management Commission felt that that's what they wanted to do, and that's what's been going on. And you know what? I don't care so much if it's done, but that should be considered a commercial mooring permit so that I don't wind up with 20 or 30 of these out in the Sound, because then there's no names on them and they don't comply at all.
I agree, Harry. I think what you're saying is absolutely accurate.
The ones you're talking about, do they have permits and stickers on them?
No.
No, they
No.
don't have any stickers. Tom, do you issue any stickers to Old Line Marina?
Not those, the ones that are private ones that don't have the ball. Did they get permits?
See, I don't even know who they are because there's no name on them. You know, they're out in the back river.
The private ones aren't
Historically-
supposed to have that kind of mooring. They're supposed
We
to
have not been issuing stickers to commercial permits the last 2 years. We also talked about last year a new process for commercial where we're actually going to hold them to individual inspections, but they were going to sign an affidavit letter that said that they were going to conform to the stats or to the specs. I think honestly, there's probably more depth we could go there and make it a little more stringent requirement wise, but you know, that's what we're doing now.
We're halfway there because we identify them on our records as commercial and private. So I think to go the rest of the way is not a big task.
Yeah, I think that, Steve, I agree. And I think that one of the things we could do very easily is just confirm internally who qualifies as commercial versus who qualifies for private. And, you know, just enforce those rules appropriately.
When we do our mooring inspection, it's a pretty simple matter of insisting that it has a ball included.
Those specs are published, yeah, and they sign the inspection form says, I hereby attest that I am following specs. So if they sign that and they're not following the specs, to me that's an illegal mooring and should be pulled.
Well, I
Absolutely.
have never inspected any of Old Line Marina's moorings at all.
We're talking about the private ones, not Old Line Marinas.
No, we're talking about them all, Steve. If they don't meet our Harbor Management Commission's guidelines, they are illegal moorings, no matter who puts them in. Regulations are regulations. The Harbor Commission has these standards, and if they're not being obeyed by, they're illegal moorings.
Well, I think Old
It's
Line
cut and
Marina was
dry.
basically grandfathered in. They've been doing it long before the commission existed that way. Lenny Abrahamson was on the commission from day one when it was started. My first mooring I purchased from Old Line Marina. I allowed them to service it. They set it up exactly the way they set up their own for me. And I had that when the Harbor Commission began for a number of years. It wasn't until recently that I put a ball on.
I think you hit it right on the head.
Okay,
It's
let's
something that we're talking about one company, and we've discussed in the past that we feel that what they're doing is just fine for them, but it is not just fine for private moorings. So
But I think in the future, Steve, we have more than one company that's in Old Line, and it's not just Old Line Marina. We have other people and other commercial entities that's around the corner out on the Sound, and we have the other rivers. So I think across the board, regardless if it's commercial needs to be commercial, and then the rest of them need to be separated. They need to be identified that way. I know that Lenny created that a long time ago because Lenny didn't want to buy any mooring balls. And I know that because my husband was doing moorings with Lenny from 15 on, and that's just the way they did it. But doesn't mean that they can't put mooring balls on if we tell them they need to put mooring balls on. If they like that way, but what Harry's trying to say from the beginning of the conversation, if you listen to Harry's saying that everybody's trying to create their own way of doing it, and Harry can't differentiate between commercial and not commercial. So that's what Harry's trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with Harry.
But all the commercial ones are in one area. The ones he's talking about that are private, that just have floats on them, if they don't conform, we can pull them.
But we have commercial, not just in the main anchorage, we have commercial in other areas.
Mm-hmm.
We have commercial down around the corner off of Soundview, and now we have commercial with Mike Barnes eventually. And we, you know, the other entities. You know, he's just saying that they just need to be stamped as commercial, somehow commercial. And if that means we create, you know, the way that Old Line Marina has been doing it for commercial in that area, then it just needs to be stated that that's how they do commercial and marked. Give them a commercial sticker. Put it on the
Yeah, I mean, if they're grandfathered in because they were doing it before the buoy was a regulation with us, we really should let them do it, but nobody
I'm
else.
not saying that they just because entities have been there forever and ever, they shouldn't be grandfathered in. What happens if they're?
That's why they have grandfather laws.
Well, I think that I don't really agree, but
Yeah, I think we have to understand what's the reason for the state to have the ball requirement. Is it a safety issue at night? Is it, you know, what's that requirement? But I wouldn't want to go out and say, hey, you guys don't have to do this because we're going to override the state's policy. You know, I understand the grandfather piece, but I think we got to take a look at what's the reason for the ball.
I can tell you one problem of having a ball. If you've ever slept on a boat, the tide changes, that ball is banging on the hull.
I think
Sometimes you got to push off because it actually gets stuck.
and another reason in that whole section, to be honest with you, is there's so much debris that comes around the corner and comes down there that hangs up mooring bolts like you wouldn't believe. And the beginning part of that harbor always catches the biggest pieces because they have the balls. So.
Listen, I don't have a problem with what Old Line Marina does because they're in a confined area, and that's fine. I can identify all that. It's when I'm in other areas of Old Line waters and I start seeing these things pop up elsewhere. That's where I have the problem.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for us to update the harbor management plan to identify what type of balls or non-balls are required in what areas. I'm looking at the mooring tackle specs. Oh, I'm not sharing, but I was looking at the mooring tackle specs right now, and it does not mention anything about the size or shape of the ball. It gives an illustration purposes only, and it does have a ball with a separate pickup buoy, but it does not identify any requirements. The only requirements are, as you guys all know, about the shackles and sizes and things like that. So currently, there's no requirements for a ball.
And most harbors. Well, most harbors have a wicked current. I mean, not as much as Old Lyme has a wicked current, but Essex, everything kind of, you know, gets fouled easy, and you need to have that swivel and the shackles and so forth. And they ride up on the keel, sailboats. Old Lyme Marina was a huge sailboats only on moorings. So the balls were just not effective for them. It doesn't matter. To go back to what Harry's saying is he's right. We need to differentiate the two.
Okay, so what we've heard is that our past practice is what it has been. So, you know, Old Lyme Marina is going to set their moorings this year in another month or so. But to Harry's point is that if they're not an Old Lyme Marina commercial mooring and they're a private people and they're out on their own, they've got to have the standard Old Lyme package.
They do, but he needs to be able to identify them.
Yeah, I agree. You need to identify them because if Old Lyme pays for 44 moorings and we see 60 rigs like the Old Lyme rigs, we don't know who those private moorings belong to. Okay, so Harry, by next meeting, you're gonna have to come up with some words and write a description of what you want the committee to consider for your idea there about differentiation between Old Lyme commercial and the rest of the moorings.
All right.
Thank you.
I think from an ethics standpoint, we need to make sure that we differentiate the area, not a particular commercial entity.
Right, because the pavilion, they conform to all the they should. The same thing with Old Line Fuel Dock. They have white balls with blue stripes. They have 3 moorings, and
Yeah.
they're all.
Yeah, we
up
only
to par.
grandfathered Old Line Marina. We didn't grandfather anybody else.
No, but I'm just saying those are commercial entities that do conform.
Right, and
to
they
the-
should. You're
Okay.
absolutely right. They should conform. We're looking at debris. We're looking at knocking of the long, big keeled sailboats. You know, you don't have big keeled sailboats off Sound View. You know, you got speedboats over there.
Right.
Yeah, I think we got to be very careful on how we word that from an ethics standpoint. We can't just say, "Oh, it's Old Line is grandfathering." I don't know of any document. Maybe you guys have a grandfathering in policy or a memo to file that grandfathered them in. But I think if there's driftwood, et cetera, that's the concern in that area. Yes, I think that's a perfectly logical way to write that in, but I don't think you can just say, well, Old Line Marina is allowed to do this and no one else. You know, it can't be do as I say, and then everyone else has to follow a different rule. It's got to be one set of rules for everyone. It's not just because Old Line Marina is been here forever. You can't do that.
Well, to take into consideration, Old Line Marina did not get the water traffic Fuel Dock gets and gets. They don't have the exposure to a lot of people buzzing by the docks and stuff. So
Yep,
it's
absolutely.
in a confined area. So I can see that being as what it is. But anywhere else, the exposure is too great.
They used to use it as like a bridle too, because there were sailboats. They would go to both chocks, both cleats.
Well, I would say they're 90% sailboats, but I'm noticing more and more pleasure boats too on these moorings.
Okay, so it's clear for next meeting. We'll pick this back up again. If you have some more thoughts on the matter, or you talk to Glenn, let us know at the next meeting, or you can put your thoughts down in some kind of a document that would help. And also, we need that letter on rates on file, Harry, too.
And Harry,
You'll have that week.
Harry, this is Tom. Can I ask you a favor, please? When you're
Yeah.
talking to Glenn, for whatever you're talking to Glenn about, would you ask him for 2021 to please fill out all of his inspection paperwork? He has a terrible habit of leaving stuff blank, and it just causes problems.
All right, I'll talk to him because I'm going to get his thoughts too.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Those are 2 good points. Tom, you're right. He just signs the bottom line. He doesn't fill in all the chain size and all that. Getting a little lax.
He's grandfathered in.
Yeah, really
Don't
lax.
worry about it.
Okay, let's appreciate you bringing up that issue there, Harry. Okay, we're going to have fun with that July audit. We're going to have the whole committee out there on the water doing this audit. And you'll be busy pulling abandoned moorings, I'm sure, or illegal moorings or stick ring moorings. Okay.
On record, John is saying that, to the point brought up earlier, that audit would be a perfect time to take a GPS mark on every single mooring, which would really put us in a position to go electronic with our mooring management system. Thank you.
That sounds like a wonderful idea. You know, we got some manpower to spare, and we got some good, smart people, and we got some GPSs, and we'll have to apply the technology, as Chris says.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm calling for public comment. If there's any public left, there's none. A motion?
Wait a minute, John,
Sure.
did you discuss, under new business D, harbor management plan and addendum, discuss process for review update?
No, I didn't.
Harry at that D.
Harry sort of led us into that.
We also never had the harbor master report.
Yeah, that's the longest harbor master report we got.
And the Harbor Management Commission membership openings and appointments, I think we forgot that too. But maybe we could just table those.
No, well, there was one opening for an alternate, and I think the board of selectmen know that. So we have one opening for an alternate, and the selectmen know that.
Okay.
Okay, under new business, Part D, Harbor Management Plan Addendum, discuss process for review and update. I think Steve has left the, I don't see Steve online anymore.
Steve had enough.
But I did discuss this with Steve. This addendum update, the last time it was done, he told me the addendum and the harbor management plan were updated in 2012 by himself and Charlie DeLinks. And Charlie DeLinks had to retype the whole document because it was not electronically paginated correctly and was not conducive like a Word document to being edited. So it's got retyped. I guess from my point of view, I'd like to know where the document resides and whether it's in a format that can be edited. Anybody idea that worked? Tom, you, Terry, or Chris, if you worked on the website, do you know if this is a document that can be edited?
Yes, it's on our website, John. It's published to the website, so it's available. I can send you an editable copy if you'd like.
Well, that would be a good start because I never got past that point of finding out who got the copy and who could get me a copy of that. They were sent it to the whole committee.
Yep, I have access to our section of the website, so I'm on there now. I'll pull it off and I'll send it to everybody on the list tonight.
Tom, can you convert that? Tom, can you convert that to a Word document or just the editable PDF?
I'll see what it is. I'll do both if I can.
Awesome.
Back converting from PDF is sometimes not pretty. So.
Yeah. I wonder who has the original. Maybe we can talk to
that. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Probably Charlie DeLinks. That's step number one. We need to have a working document.
Yeah.
And Steve also told me that
see what I can do.
After we get done editing it, it's got to go to the Board of Selectmen and it's got to be voted at a town meeting to adopt and change the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to follow that same process that we used to get the approval of the variance procedure. So this is probably going to be an all year long, but it's going to take the majority of this year to get it circulated, get the comments, and we could do it as a 100% committee, or we could get a subcommittee to work on it, or we could edit certain sections at a time. There's all kinds of different processes on how to attack this. Has anybody got any ideas how they would want to eat this elephant a bite at a time?
John, I'm going to make a suggestion. I'm happy to take an action as I get the document available. I'll make some recommendations on how it can be approached for editing, and I'll forward that along with the document, if you'd like.
I would like that because I've been on a daisy chain of edits and with legal people and 5 or 10 people, and what happens is on a Word document, you've got so many comments and colors and people that you never know where the control document is and what status it's in.
Another way to do
control of the document.
Another way to do it is to split sections up and assign them to different people.
Well, give it some thought, Tom, because we certainly want comments, but we don't want endless confusing revisions of people's comments coming and going and getting confused. So
Well,
it,
you need an owner of the process, and I guess that's what I'm sort of volunteering to be, a traffic manager, if you will.
yeah, because if I send you comments today and by luck you don't incorporate them and somebody sends you different comments, then we're working on the document in different stages, and it becomes a total nightmare to work with.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
John,
And that's why I'm saying, given the type of group we are and the fact that we don't even meet in person anymore, maybe we just take away the potential for error there. And, Terry gets section 1, Chris gets section 2, I get section 3, and then we come back in the meeting, everybody puts in their changes, but we don't cross-reference each other,
Yeah. Well, take your first step, Tom. Get the document. See if it's in the editable format that allows editing.
Yes.
And do a first thought process of how we can get through this process without stepping on each other's toes.
I'll throw out some ideas. You guys can.
No edibles.
I don't know what that. It's like.
Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
Right.
It's getting a little late. I'm good. It's
Mary Ellen, you made me laugh. I saw you giggling.
So we're gonna eat the document when we're done.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Ellen. See, you brought up that last subject. You had we're in that funny hour now. Okay, so
Late.
are we clear on that, Tom?
Absolutely.
He fell asleep.
Okay, all right. I gotta have to call for adjournment.
Yeah, Tom, if you need any support, just let me know. If you can't get into a Word doc or an editable, just let me know, and I'll get it to the right hands and get it into a Word doc.
And get an
I know
editable
people can.
document.
Doc, my worry is that it's going to beat up the document in that transition. So I just want to make sure we don't come up with a worse situation.
Nope, I hear you.
What long is it? Ooh.
And there's one other alternative, Tom, as I wouldn't mind going through the whole damn document one quick shot and just turn it over, I mean, just to take care of all the stuff that's really no longer, it's like.
Well, I think there's a place for that. It's a big document and there needs to be some overall guidance on it. But I think that if we really want to, optimize, again, I don't want to go into it now, but if we want to optimize, then we probably should come up with an equitable way to split it up and then we're not stepping on each other's toes.
Okay.
All right.
I'm certainly willing to work with the democratic process, Leonard.
Absolutely.
I'm a Republican.
Okay.
Good God.
All right, adjournment.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate your work on that. You've done a great job with the mooring system, and I appreciate your help with that document.
My pleasure.
Okay. Mary Ellen, what's the next thing on the agenda?
Adjourn. There's no public comment.
No public comment. Motion to adjourn?
First, second, third, fourth.
Terry, thank you.
All right. I think Terry did both, but we'll give the second to Bill Harris. He's smiling.
Second.
There you go.
Uh-huh.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, John. Thank
Be in
you.
touch
Jen.
via email.
God
Bye.
bless.
Bye.
All right.
All right.
Good
Good night,
See you guys.
everybody.
Oh.
Signing off.
Have a good night, everyone. Take care.